The boardroom was silent. The boardroom was silent. Too silent. Not the kind of silence that brings peace, but the kind that presses against your chest and makes every breath feel heavy. All eyes were on her. Abigail stood at the center of the room, fingers trembling slightly as she held a file close to her chest. Her name was written boldly across it. Report failure. Internal misconduct. Whispers spread across the room like wildfire. I knew she was too quiet. These quiet ones are always hiding something. Imagine, after everything the company did for her. Some didn't even bother to hide their reactions. A few exchanged knowing looks. Others smiled. At the far end of the long table sat Mr. Raymond, regional director. A man whose presence alone was enough to silence a room. Feared, respected, and never questioned. He leaned back in his chair and began to clap slowly. Once. Then he stopped. Abigail. His voice was calm. Unnaturally calm. Do you understand the gravity of what you've done? She opened her mouth to speak, but the words refused to come out. Her throat felt tight, dry, because deep down something didn't make sense. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Mr. Raymond stood up, adjusting his suit as he stepped forward. Each step echoed across the room, slow and deliberate, like a judge walking toward a verdict. Confidential company data leaked. A wave of gasps swept through the room. That's grounds for prison, someone whispered under their breath. Abigail's grip tightened on the file. Sure. I didn't. Enough. His hand slammed against the table, the sharp sound cutting through the air like a gunshot. Do not insult this board with lies. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Behind them, a large screen flickered to life. Emails, documents, access logs. Every single detail pointed directly to her. Her login, her credentials, her responsibility. Or at least that's how it looked. Phones began to come out one after the other. Some people leaned forward, eager. Others pretended to take notes, but their eyes never left her. This wasn't just a meeting anymore. It was a spectacle, and Abigail was the center of it. Mr. Raymond adjusted his cuffs and took another step closer. You have two options. His voice dropped slightly, but it carried across the entire room. You apologize. Publicly. He paused, letting the words settle. Or you walk out of this company today. Permanently. Her eyes moved slowly across the room, searching, hoping, for something, for someone. She saw Clara, her closest friend in the office. Clara avoided her gaze. She saw Daniel, the man who once told her, I'll always stand by you. He looked down. That hurt more than anything else. In that moment, it wasn't just her job hanging in the balance. It was her reputation, her years of sacrifice, her dignity, everything she had built. Mr. Raymond's voice cut through again. We're waiting. Time seemed to stretch, each second heavier than the last. Abigail took a step forward, then another. Her hands were still shaking, but her face was beginning to change. Not fear, not panic, something else, something quieter, stronger. She reached for the microphone, and just as her fingers brushed against it, her phone rang. Once, she ignored it. It rang again. A few people shifted in irritation. Turn that off, someone muttered. It rang a third time. Mr. Raymond's expression hardened. Answer it later. This is more important. Abigail slowly reached into her pocket. Her fingers hesitated for a brief moment before pulling the phone out. She looked at the screen, and everything changed. The trembling stopped. Her breathing steadied. The fear in her eyes disappeared, replaced by something calm, something controlled, something no one in that room had seen before. She lifted her head. This time she didn't look at the floor. She didn't look at her boss. She looked directly at everyone. Then, in a quiet voice that carried more weight than any shout in the room, she said, "You might want to hear this." The room fell into a confused silence. For a brief moment no one moved. Then a few soft chuckles broke out. Mr. Raymond let out a dry laugh, shaking his head slowly. "You're not in a position to make requests, Abigail." But she didn't respond to him. Her eyes remained steady. Focused. She walked forward, placed her phone gently on the table, and tapped the screen. The call was still ringing. Then it connected. "Put it on speaker," she said quietly. That was when the room shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough for people to start paying attention. Mr. Raymond folded his arms. "Go ahead," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Let's all hear this very important call." Few people smirked. Someone at the back whispered, "This should be good." Abigail pressed the speaker button. For a second there was only static. Then a voice came through. Clear. Professional. Authoritative. "Hello. Can you hear me?" No one answered. Not immediately. Because the voice was familiar. Very familiar. Mr. Raymond's expression changed slightly. "Yes," he replied cautiously, stepping closer to the table. "This is the boardroom. Who is this?" There was a brief pause on the line. "This is Mr. Adeyemi from the executive office." The room froze. Not completely, but enough for the air to feel different. Mr. Adeyemi wasn't just anyone. He was the CEO. And he never called into meetings like this. Ever. Mr. Raymond straightened his posture. "Sir, we're currently handling an internal disciplinary matter. Is there something urgent?" Another pause. Then the voice returned, sharper this time. "Yes. Very urgent." You could hear a pin drop. "We've just received final confirmation from legal and the board of trustees." Abigail didn't move. Didn't speak. She simply stood there, watching. "Confirmation of what?" Mr. Raymond asked, a slight edge creeping into his voice. The answer came slowly, deliberately. "As of this morning, the majority shares of this company have been fully acquired." A ripple of confusion spread across the room. "What?" someone whispered. "That's not possible." Mr. Raymond frowned. "I'm not aware of any such." "You weren't meant to be." The interruption hit harder than a shout. Mr. Raymond went quiet. Everyone did. Mr. Adeyemi continued. "The acquisition was handled privately, strategically, and legally." Abigail's gaze didn't waver. "The new majority owner now holds controlling interest in this company." Few people exchanged uneasy looks. Phones slowly lowered. Not recording anymore. Now listening. Mr. Raymond forced a small laugh. "All right. And what does this have to do with this meeting?" There was no hesitation in the response. "Everything." Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. "Effective immediately. All executive powers are being reviewed." Mr. Raymond's jaw tightened. "Reviewed?" "Yes." Another pause. Then the words that shifted everything. "And effective immediately. You are to step down from your position pending full investigation." It didn't land immediately. It hovered in the air, like something unreal. Mr. Raymond blinked. Once. "I'm sorry, what?" "You are relieved of your duties until further notice." A chair scraped loudly across the floor. "That's ridiculous," he snapped. "On whose authority?" There was a brief silence on the line. "On the authority of the new majority owner." No one moved. No one spoke. 'Cause now, there was only one question in every mind. "Ooh." Mr. Raymond let out a breathless scoff. "Then I suggest you put this new owner on the line, because I would very much like to speak with them directly." Abigail reached forward and gently turned the phone slightly toward herself. "You already are." The words were soft, but they hit like thunder. Mr. Raymond's eyes snapped toward her. "What did you just say?" She didn't raise her voice, didn't repeat herself loudly. She simply stepped forward, every movement calm, controlled. Then she spoke again. "I said, you're already speaking to the person who made that decision." The room went completely still. No whispers, no movement, nothing. Then someone laughed nervously. Okay. This is getting out of hand. But no one joined in. Because something about her had changed. Mr. Raymond stared at her, searching her face for any sign of hesitation, any sign of weakness. He found none. That's not funny, he said coldly. Step away from that phone. But she didn't move. On the line, Mr. Adeyemi spoke again. Mr. Raymond. His voice carried a different tone now. One that confirmed everything. You will address her properly. A sharp breath caught in someone's throat. Mr. Raymond's confidence cracked, just slightly. What? That is Abigail. Was. Your new majority shareholder. The words settled into the room like a shockwave. Someone dropped their pen. Another person slowly stood up without realizing it. Clara's hand flew to her mouth. Daniel looked up, finally, and this time he couldn't look away. Mr. Raymond took a step back. Then another. His voice came out uneven. No, that's not possible. Abigail tilted her head slightly. Not arrogantly. Not aggressively. Just calmly. It is. Silence. The kind that makes everything feel louder. Heartbeat. Breathing. Mr. Adeyemi continued on the phone. She currently holds 62% controlling shares of this company. That number hit harder than anything else. 62%. Not a small investor. Not a silent partner. Control. Complete control. Mr. Raymond shook his head slowly. This is some kind of mistake. But even he didn't sound convinced anymore. Abigail finally took a seat. Not just any seat. A seat. And she did it without breaking eye contact. You were saying something about an apology, she asked quietly. No one laughed this time. No one whispered. 'Cause now, they understood. Everything had changed. No one spoke. No one dared to. The same room that had been filled with whispers, judgment, and quiet laughter just minutes ago now sat frozen under a new weight. A different kind of pressure. The kind that comes when power shifts without warning. Mr. Raymond remained standing. But something about him had changed. The confidence in his shoulders was gone. The authority in his voice had faded. And for the first time since anyone in that company had ever known him, he looked unsure. This doesn't change anything, he said, though the conviction wasn't there anymore. There are procedures. There are protocols. You can't just walk in here and... I didn't just walk in. Abigail's voice was calm, measured, controlled. She leaned back slightly in the chair, her fingers resting lightly on the table as if she had always belonged there. This process started months ago. A flicker of confusion crossed several faces in the room. Months. No one had noticed anything. No signs. No rumors. Nothing. Mr. Raymond let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Months, he repeated. You expect me to believe that you... I don't expect you to believe anything, she said, cutting him off gently. The documents have already been signed. Silence. He opened his mouth to argue again, but no words came out. Because deep down, he was beginning to understand something he didn't want to accept. This wasn't a bluff. This wasn't a mistake. This was real. Abigail's gaze moved across the room slowly, taking everything in. The same faces that had watched her crumble moments ago. The same eyes that had judged her, avoided her, dismissed her. Now they couldn't even meet her gaze. Interesting, she said softly. How quickly silence can change direction. No one responded. Clara's eyes were filled with panic now. Her fingers clenched tightly against the edge of the table. Daniel looked like he wanted to say something, but didn't know how. Abigail noticed both of them. But she didn't address them. Not yet. Instead, she reached forward and gently closed the file that had been placed in front of her earlier. The accusation. Evidence. The lie. She tapped it lightly with her fingers. This report, she said, was very detailed. Mr. Raymond stiffened. It followed internal formatting, she continued. Access logs, timestamps, structured conclusions. She looked up at him. Almost too perfect. A quiet tension spread across the room again. Different this time. Harper. You built a strong case, she added. Mr. Raymond straightened slightly, trying to regain control. Because the evidence is clear, he said quickly. Everything points to you. Abigail nodded slowly. Yes, that's what makes it interesting. She turned her attention to the screen behind them. Because I reviewed the same logs. And I noticed something you didn't expect anyone else to notice. No one moved. No one interrupted. You focused on access, she said. But you ignored timing. Mr. Raymond's expression tightened. What are you implying? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached for a small remote on the table and pressed a button. The screen flickered. The previous display disappeared, replaced by something new. A different set of logs. More detailed. More precise. Zoom in, she said calmly. One of the IT staff almost instinctively obeyed. The timestamps expanded. Highlighted. Clear. Abigail stood up slowly. Walked toward the screen. According to this report, she said, the data was accessed using my credentials at exactly 2:14 a.m. She turned slightly. Correct. No one answered. But no one disagreed either. She nodded. Now, look again. She pointed at another section. Building access records. Another click. Another display. Security logs. Entry scans. Timestamps. And what time did I badge out of this building that day? Silence. Then, quietly, someone answered. 8:52 p.m. Abigail nodded again. Exactly. She turned back to face the room. So tell me. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. How did I access company data from inside the building? Over 5 hours after I had already left. The question landed hard. Heavy. Unavoidable. Mr. Raymond didn't respond immediately. 'Cause there was no quick answer. No easy explanation. Just a growing realization spreading across the room. This wasn't a mistake. This was a setup. Abigail let the silence stretch. Let it breathe. Then she added softly. Unless, of course. Her eyes moved slowly across the room. Tapping. Clara. Someone else used my access. Clara froze. Completely. Her face drained of color. I don't know what you're trying to. Don't. Abigail's voice was still calm, but firmer now. Enough to stop her. I haven't asked you anything yet. The room felt tighter. Muller. Clara swallowed hard. Daniel looked between them, confused, tense, uncertain. Abigail took a step closer. Not aggressive. Not rushed. Just precise. Would you like me to continue? She asked quietly. Or would you prefer to explain it yourself? Clara's lips parted, but no words came out. And in that moment, the real story was just beginning to surface. If you are enjoying this story, please subscribe and like so it can get to others that needs to hear it. Clara's lips trembled, but no sound came out. The room closed in around her. Every eye that had once been fixed on Abigail was now shifting. Slowly. Deliberately. Toward her. I think there's a misunderstanding, Clara finally said, her voice barely holding together. I would never log in at 2:14 a.m. Abigail finished quietly. Clara froze again. I didn't say that, she replied quickly, almost too quickly. Abigail tilted her head slightly. You didn't have to. Few people exchanged glances. The tension in the room was no longer subtle. It was sharp. Cutting through every breath, every thought. Abigail turned back to the screen and pressed another button. A new image appeared. CCTV footage. Grainy, time-stamped. The office floor. 2:13 a.m. Figure walked into frame. Hooded. Careful. Intentional. Someone in the room gasped softly. Clara's hand slowly covered her mouth. No, she whispered under her breath. Abigail didn't look at her. Zoom in, she said. The IT staff hesitated for a second. Then obeyed. The image sharpened slightly. The figure approached a desk. Sat down. Logged in. Time ticked forward. 2:14 a.m. Access granted. Data opened. Files transferred. The room watched in complete silence. No one dared to interrupt. No one dared to breathe too loudly. Then the figure shifted slightly. And the camera caught something. A reflection. On the glass panel beside the desk. Not clear. But enough. Bracelet. In. Silver. Distinct. Abigail finally turned. Her eyes resting directly on Clara's wrist. The same bracelet. Clara instinctively pulled her hand back. Too late. You said it was a gift, Abigail said softly. From your sister, if I remember correctly. Clara's breathing became uneven. I lost it last week, she stammered. I told you that. Yes, Abigail nodded. You did. Was. Right after the data leak. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Mr. Raymond shifted uncomfortably. This proves nothing, he said quickly, trying to regain some control. A bracelet doesn't. It doesn't, Abigail agreed. And for a split second, it sounded like she was letting it go. Until she pressed another button. The screen changed again. Access logs. But this time more detailed. Device IDs. Location markers. And one line highlighted. Secondary authentication device detected. Mr. Raymond frowned. What is this? Abigail didn't look at him. Every secure login requires two-step verification, she said. Password. And a registered device. She let that sink in. Then added. My account is linked to only one device. He paused. Then turned slowly toward Clara. But that night, a second device was used. Clara shook her head immediately. I don't know anything about that. Device registered under your name. The words landed like a verdict. Clara's knees almost gave way. No, that's not possible. But even she didn't believe it anymore. The evidence was no longer pointing. It was closing in. Unavoidable. Daniel finally spoke. His voice low, confused, almost desperate. Clara, what's going on? She looked at him. And for a moment something broke. Not fully. But enough. Tears filled her eyes. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered. The room reacted instantly. A wave of murmurs. Disbelief. Daniel stepped back slightly. What do you mean? You didn't mean. I just needed the promotion, she said, her voice cracking. You don't understand what I've been dealing with. And that required framing someone else. Abigail asked. Still calm. Still controlled. But now, there was something else beneath it. Something sharper. Clara shook her head frantically. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I thought they would just issue a warning. Maybe suspend you. Her voice dropped. I didn't know they would try to destroy you. Silence. Heavy. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, pacing slightly. You did this, he said, disbelief written all over his face. To her. Clara looked at him, tears streaming now. I did it for us, she cried. This promotion would have changed everything. Daniel stopped. His expression hardened. For us, he repeated. A bitter laugh escaped him. I never asked you to do anything like this. That hit her. Hard. Her face crumbled. Mr. Raymond stepped in quickly, his tone sharp. This is all irrelevant, he snapped. Even if she accessed the account, it still traces back to Abigail. She is responsible for her credentials. Abigail turned to him slowly. And you approved the final report, she said. He hesitated. Based on available evidence, yes. Without requesting a full forensic audit. That wasn't necessary. It was required. That stopped him. Just for a second. But it was enough. Abigail took a step closer. You didn't want the truth, she said quietly. You wanted a conclusion. His jaw tightened. That's not true. Then why was the investigation closed in less than 12 hours? No answer. Why was I denied access to defend myself? Silence. Why, she continued, her voice steady. Was the decision already made before this meeting even started? The room shifted again. Now the attention wasn't just on Clara. It was on him. Mr. Raymond. The man who had walked in with authority. Now standing in the middle of something he could no longer control. This is turning into a circus, he said sharply. And I will not stand here and be. No, Abigail said softly. And somehow, that one word was louder than everything else he had said. You won't. The room went still again. Because this time, it didn't sound like a statement. Sounded like a decision. And for the first time, Mr. Raymond realized. He wasn't in charge anymore. Mr. Raymond's lips parted, but no words came out. For a man who had always had something to say. Always had control of every room he stepped into. The silence around him now felt unfamiliar, uncomfortable, dangerous. He looked around as if searching for support. But no one spoke. No one moved. Because the balance had shifted. And everyone could feel it. Abigail walked back slowly toward the table. Her steps measured, unhurried. She picked up the same file that had been used against her just minutes ago and flipped it open. Let's finish this properly, she said. Her tone wasn't angry. It was worse. It was calm. She scanned the document briefly, then closed it again. This report recommended immediate termination, she continued. Legal escalation, and possible criminal charges. A quiet ripple of discomfort spread across the room. That's correct, Mr. Raymond said, forcing firmness into his voice. Given the severity of the offense. An offense I didn't commit. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. He clenched his jaw. The system shows. The system was manipulated. That landed hard. He stepped forward. You're making serious accusations. Abigail met his gaze without flinching. I'm stating facts. Then she added. And unlike you, I came prepared. She reached for a thin folder beside her and slid it across the table. Stopped directly in front of him. He hesitated before opening it. Inside were printed documents, audit summaries, authorization logs, signatures, official seals. His eyes moved quickly across the pages at first, then slower. Then they stopped. What is this? He asked, though his voice had already begun to lose strength. A full independent forensic audit, Abigail replied. Completed this morning. A murmur ran through the room. Mr. Raymond looked up sharply. That's impossible. An audit of that level takes time, she finished. Yes, it does. She held his gaze. Which is why it didn't start this morning. Silence. Click. Not just for him. For everyone. This has been in motion for weeks, someone whispered. Abigail didn't confirm it. She didn't deny it either. She simply let them think. Let them realize. Mr. Raymond flipped through the pages again, faster now. More urgently. His fingers tightening slightly. Then he stopped at a section. Highlighted. Bold. His name. What is this supposed to mean? He asked, his voice sharper now, but no longer confident. Abigail stepped closer. That, she said, is authorization. He shook his head immediately. No. I never approved. You did. The interruption was immediate. Precise. She reached down and tapped the page lightly. 3 weeks ago. His eyes flickered. Just for a second. But she saw it. Everyone didn't. But she did. You signed off on a system override, she continued. Temporary access expansion for senior-level review. That's standard procedure, he replied quickly. That doesn't. It allowed external device linkage. The room went quiet again. Different this time. He didn't respond. 'Cause now, he understood where this was going. You created a window, Abigail said. A gap in the system. Her voice softened slightly. And someone used it. Clara's quiet sob broke through the silence. Daniel turned away, running both hands over his face. This is not my fault, Mr. Raymond said, but now there was something else in his tone. Not authority, not control, defensiveness. You're the one who failed to secure your credentials, he added, grasping for something, anything. Abigail nodded slowly. Yes, she said. That caught him off guard. Yes. I trusted the wrong people. Her eyes shifted briefly. Clara. Then to Daniel. Then back to him. But trust, she continued, is not a crime. Was. Negligence is. That word hung in the air. Heavy. Dark. Unforgiving. Mr. Raymond straightened slightly, trying to hold on to what little ground he had left. You're twisting this, he said. At worst, this is an internal oversight. It doesn't justify wrongful termination. She cut in again. Defamation. Another step closer. Attempted legal escalation based on incomplete investigation. Each word hit like a hammer. Measured. Precise. He didn't answer. Couldn't. Because every direction he turned led to the same place. Accountability. Abigail let the silence stretch again. Then she spoke. Do you know what the audit concludes? No response. She didn't wait for one. It concludes that the breach was made possible by unauthorized use of my credentials. Was. Facilitated by system permissions approved under your authority. Another pause. And executed by an internal staff member. Clara broke down completely this time, covering her face as her shoulders shook. No one comforted her. No one moved. Because this wasn't just about her anymore. This was bigger. Much bigger. Mr. Raymond exhaled slowly, shaking his head. This doesn't remove her involvement, he said, gesturing vaguely toward Abigail. Her account was still used. She still bears responsibility. Abigail looked at him for a long moment. Then she said quietly, You're right. That confused him. And everyone else. For a split second, the room didn't know what to do with that. Then she added, I do bear responsibility. For staying silent, when I should have spoken earlier. Her voice didn't crack. Didn't weaken. If I had exposed this before today, maybe this wouldn't have gone this far. She glanced around the room. At all of them. But then again, her eyes settled back on him. I wouldn't have seen who was willing to stand on the wrong side of the truth. No one looked comfortable anymore. Not even those who had said nothing. 'Cause silence had also become a choice. Abigail took a slow breath. Then she said, This company is about to change. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But with certainty. Starting now. And in that moment, everyone understood. This wasn't just the end of an accusation. It was the beginning of something else. Something none of them were ready for. A quiet tension settled over the room. Not the chaotic kind from earlier. Not the kind filled with whispers and judgment. This one was different. Heavier. Deliberate. The kind that comes just before something irreversible happens. Abigail remained standing, her hands resting lightly on the table. Her gaze steady as it moved across every face in the room. I believe we've established the facts, she said. No one interrupted. No one disagreed. Because there was nothing left to argue. She turned slightly. Security. The door opened almost immediately. 2 uniformed officers stepped in. Not aggressively. Not loudly. But their presence alone shifted the air. Mr. Raymond's eyes flicked toward them, then back to Abigail. What is this? He asked, though the answer was already forming in his mind. A precaution, she replied calmly. For what? He pushed. Abigail held his gaze. For what comes next? Then she continued. As of this moment, you are officially suspended pending a full executive and legal review. His expression hardened again, but it was thinner now. Stretched over something fragile. You can't do that without board approval, he said quickly. The board has already approved it. The words came from the phone. Mr. Adeyemi's voice again. Still on the line. still listening, still in control. And for clarity, he added, this decision is unanimous. That was it. The last piece. The last resistance. Something in Mr. Raymond's posture finally gave way. Not dramatically, not visibly to everyone, but enough. Enough for those paying attention to see it. He let out a slow breath, then another, as if trying to steady himself. This is unbelievable, he muttered. Abigail didn't respond, because this moment wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about consequence. The officers stepped forward slightly. Sir, one of them said respectfully, we'll need you to come with us. Mr. Raymond didn't move immediately. His eyes moved around the room one last time, searching, hoping, but no one stepped in. No one spoke for him, because the same distance he had created between himself and others was now being returned. He gave a small, bitter smile, then straightened his jacket. Of course, he said quietly. And just like that, he walked out. No applause, no reaction, just silence. The door closed behind him with a soft click. And somehow, that sound echoed louder than anything else that had happened. For a few seconds no one moved. Then Abigail turned back to the room. And now, there was no confusion about who was in charge. Sit down, she said. Everyone obeyed immediately. Not out of fear. Not completely. But because something about her presence now demanded it. She walked slowly to the head of the table again and took her seat. This time, no one questioned it. She folded her hands lightly, then looked at Clara. Stand. Clara hesitated, just for a second, then slowly rose to her feet. Her face was still wet with tears, her hands trembling. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't. This isn't about apologies, Abigail said. Her tone wasn't harsh, but it was firm enough to stop her. Clara's voice broke anyway. I was desperate, she said. I thought if I just got ahead. If I just secured my position. Her words trailed off, because even she could hear how it sounded now. Abigail studied her for a moment. Not with anger, not even with disappointment, but with clarity. You didn't just try to get ahead, she said quietly. You chose to push someone else down. Clara closed her eyes, tears slipping freely now. I know, she whispered. I know. A long pause followed. Then Abigail said, effective immediately. Your employment is terminated. The words were simple, clean, final. Clara didn't argue, didn't beg, 'cause deep down, she knew. She slowly nodded, her shoulders shaking as she picked up her bag, and walked out. No one stopped her. No one spoke. The door closed again, and the room felt even quieter. Abigail turned her gaze. This time, Daniel. He straightened slightly under the weight of it. There was no anger in her expression, but somehow, that made it harder. He began but stopped, took a breath, then tried again. I didn't know, he said. I swear I didn't know any of this was happening. She didn't respond, just watched him. I thought the evidence was real, he continued. Everything pointed to you. I didn't want to believe it, but you did, she said softly. He went quiet, 'cause there was no way around that. Yes, he admitted. A long pause stretched between them. I should have stood by you, he added. You said you would, she replied. The words were quiet, but they carried weight. He nodded slowly. I know. Another silence. Then he asked, almost carefully, what happens now? Abigail leaned back slightly in her chair, her gaze shifting briefly across the room before returning to him. Now, she said, we rebuild. The word hung there, different from everything that had come before. Not revenge, not anger, something else, something bigger. But just as the room began to settle into that thought, she added, but not with everyone. And in that moment, everyone understood. This wasn't over, not even close. Do well to subscribe so you don't miss our next story. The words lingered in the air long after she said them. But not with everyone. No one asked what she meant. No one wanted to. Because deep down, they already knew. Abigail let the silence settle, her gaze moving slowly across the room. The same people who had watched her stand alone now sat still, careful, uncertain. I believe we've established the facts, she said calmly. No one responded. There was nothing left to argue. She took a step forward, her presence now carrying a quiet authority that filled the entire room. This company has been running on assumptions, she continued. Unchecked authority, incomplete processes, and decisions made without accountability. Starting today, that ends. You could feel it. A shift. Not just in power, but in direction. You will all receive a formal review notice, she said. Every department, every decision made in the last 6 months will be audited. A few uneasy glances were exchanged. Quick, nervous, then gone. And before anyone gets uncomfortable, she added, this is not punishment. A pause. It's clarity. The words settled differently. Not threatening, but not safe either. Those who have done their work with integrity have nothing to worry about. Her eyes hardened slightly. Those who haven't. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. The silence completed it. She reached for a folder, closed it gently, then looked up again. An interim leadership structure will be put in place effective immediately. No one questioned it. No one could. Mr. Adeyemi will remain as CEO, she added. But all operational decisions will now pass through my office. That changed everything. Completely. 'Cause now, every decision, every action, every move, led back to her. Daniel watched her carefully, something unsettled in his expression. You've been planning this for a long time, he said quietly. Abigail met his gaze. Yes. No hesitation. No apology. Just truth. The room felt smaller, tighter, because now they understood something they hadn't before. She wasn't lucky. She wasn't reacting. She had been preparing. I learned early, she said slowly, that being seen is not the same as being known. No one spoke. No one moved. You saw my position, she continued. My title. My routine. Slight pause. But you never saw what I was building. The weight of those words settled deep. While you were measuring performance on paper, her voice remained steady. I was building power in silence. No one could look at her the same way again. Not after that. Mr. Adeyemi's voice came through one last time from the phone. Everything she has said is accurate. And for clarity, some of you have already worked under her authority without knowing. That sent a quiet shock through the room. 'Cause now, this wasn't just a takeover. It was a reveal. Abigail stepped away from the table. Not as someone leaving, but as someone who had already taken control. This isn't about fear, she said. Her tone softened slightly. It's about direction. She looked at all of them. Every single face. We are going to build something stronger. More honest. Another. More accountable. Then she turned toward the door. But just before she walked out, she stopped. And without looking back, she said, silence. Brief pause. Is no longer safe here. The words echoed. Not loudly, but deeply. She opened the door, stepped out, and closed it behind her. The room remained still. No whispers. No movement. 'Cause for the first time, they weren't thinking about what had just happened. They were thinking about something else. Something heavier. Something unsettling. Because as powerful as that moment was, as shocking as the reveal had been, there was one thing none of them understood. Not yet. Not even close. How did someone like Abigail become this powerful? And more importantly, why this company? The screen in the room flickered slightly, still displaying her name. And beneath it, majority shareholder. 62% control. But what they didn't know What none of them could even imagine was that this moment, this takeover, this humiliation turned power, was not the beginning of her story. It was the result of something much deeper, something much older, something far more intentional. And as the camera of their attention slowly faded from that room, one truth remained. They had just witnessed power, but they had not yet seen the reason behind it. And if you're ready to uncover the real story behind Abigail, make sure you subscribe now. And drop a comment telling me the country you're watching from, because where this story goes next, you won't see it coming.